In 1981, David Kerwin was driving through Yellowstone's hot springs with his friend Ronald Ratcliffe and Ronald's dog Moosey. At some point, they parked their car for a better look, but Moosey suddenly jumped into one of the hot springs and started yelping. Even though many people warned him not to jump into the near boiling water, David dove straight in and attempted to rescue the suffering dog. He grabbed Moosey and made it close to the edge before letting go and sinking until his friend pulled him back out. Immediately afterwards, David muttered, "That was stupid. How bad am I? That was a stupid thing I did." He was immediately blinded since the hot spring had melted his eyeballs, and when someone helped to pull his shoe off, his skin came off with it. He sustained third-degree burns over 100% of his body and died the next day after living his final hours in agonizing pain. Sadly, Moosey the dog also did not survive. Morbid Facts, Part 992. A childless Brazilian billionaire reportedly left his entire $1.14 billion fortune to soccer star Neymar despite never meeting him. In his will, the businessman said he identified with Neymar personally, admired his relationship with his father, and believed the athlete was not self-serving, making him the sole heir to a fortune worth over $1 billion. The inheritance is reportedly still subject to court approval. A fox that wandered onto thin ice became trapped when the lake froze around it. After it died, people cut the animal free and left its ice-encased body standing upright as a grim warning marker to keep others from venturing onto the dangerous ice. On D-Day, paratrooper John Steele's parachute became tangled on a church steeple in the middle of a firefight, leaving him suspended helplessly above the battlefield for hours. Unable to escape and surrounded by violent gunfire, he survived by hanging motionless and pretending to be dead while soldiers fought and died beneath him. Today, a mannequin hangs from the same steeple to commemorate his ordeal. 1994 photo shows O.J. Simpson holding hands with his children at the funeral of their mother and his ex-wife, Nicole Simpson Brown. She was brutally stabbed to death, most likely by O.J. himself, even though he was famously acquitted in court a few months later. During the funeral, O.J. reportedly spent a significant amount of time with Nicole's body and was even seen kissing her on the lips. Up until 1974, it was illegal to appear in public in the city of Chicago if you were ugly, and each offense was subject to a fine. The law was primarily made to prevent people with disabilities from going outside. While on his deathbed and completely unable to speak due to throat cancer, famous author Aldous Huxley wrote his final request to his wife to be given 100 micrograms of LSD. So she injected him with 2 separate doses of acid, and he died just a few hours later while tripping balls. When Eminem was a heavy user, he would swallow handfuls of pills without even knowing what they were. In 2007, he once overdosed on so much methadone that doctors informed him he was only 2 hours away from dying. It was such a wake-up call that he quit drugs almost immediately and has remained sober ever since. American soldier Henry Gunther was the last man to die during World War I. At 10:59 a.m. on November 11, 1918, he bravely charged at a German roadblock filled with armed soldiers. The Germans tried waving him off, knowing that the armistice would be signed within a few moments. But he apparently got too close, fired a couple rounds, and was killed instantly. In 1871, Ohio lawyer Clement Vallandigham was defending a client who was charged with murder. While showing the court how the victim might have accidentally shot himself, Clement accidentally shot himself. He won the case, but he died. The dog on the left is an award-winning French bulldog named Arnie. The dog on the right is also a French bulldog, but he was bred in the Netherlands by Hawbuck's Kennel. They're a breeder trying to establish a new, healthier template for French bulldogs, which are typically prone to overheating and breathing problems directly related to their flat facial structure. Here's an 1889 photo of a blind Muslim man named Muhammad carrying his best friend, a paralyzed Christian man with dwarfism named Samir. Despite their opposing religious views, each man depended on the other to survive. In 2017, a family swimming at Panama City Beach in Florida was suddenly swept out to sea by a strong rip current. Since there was no lifeguard on duty, over 100 beachgoers formed a human chain to pull the drowning family to safety. In May of this year, a Mercedes-Benz became the most valuable car of all time, selling for a staggering $142 million at auction. It's a 1955 300 SLR Uhlenhaut coupe that's in immaculate condition, and only 2 of them were ever made. Here's an amazing photograph of Earth, Mars, Venus, Jupiter, and Saturn in a perfect straight line across the sky. This unique 5-planet lineup only happens once every 20 years, the most recent one being this past June. In 2002, the Netherlands built a unique bridge called the Veluwemeer Aqueduct that allows boats to pass over the highway. This person got up close and personal with an extremely rare albino humpback whale off the coast of Australia. The famous whale is named Migaloo, and being this close to him can fetch you a $16,000 fine. In 1969, when African American citizens were forbidden from swimming in pools with white people, Mr. Rogers invited a black police officer to come dip his feet in a pool with him, breaking a well-known color barrier. Mr. Rogers personally responded to every fan letter he ever received. A 5-year-old blind girl once asked if he could say when he's feeding the fish because she was worried about them starving. From that point on, every time he fed the fish, he said it out loud. In the 1980s, a little girl named Beth was suffering from over 100 seizures per day and was about to have half her brain removed in a major surgery. So her mother requested a note from Mr. Rogers just to assure the little girl that she'd be okay. When Mr. Rogers heard about this, he flew to visit her in the hospital and even brought his puppets to cheer her up. Beth survived the surgery and stayed close with Mr. Rogers until his death. In 2007, Nicolas Cage bought a Tyrannosaurus skull for $276,000 after winning a bidding war with Leonardo DiCaprio. But upon later finding out that the skull had been stolen from Mongolia, Cage immediately turned it over to authorities. While in prison, Unabomber Ted Kaczynski received an invite to the 50-year reunion of his graduating class at Harvard. He RSVP'd listing his occupation as prisoner and his 8 life sentences as awards. In 1979, the FBI formed a fake company which attempted to bribe members of Congress. About 25% of them accepted the bribe and were convicted. In 2007, a thief drove a $300,000 Porsche through the glass window of a luxury car showroom. After running out of gas almost immediately, he abandoned the car nearby. But the thief held on to the keys, brought a can of gas to the police station, and stole the car again. Thomas Wetters was a circus performer in Yorkshire, England throughout the 18th century. He was famously known for having a 7.5-inch nose, which was confirmed by the Guinness Book of World Records to be the longest nose in history by more than double. This is the only known footage of the extremely rare box jellyfish known as Chirodectus. Captured off the coast of Papua New Guinea, this was only the second ever sighting of the species in recorded history. This rare beef tenderloin was slow roasted to perfection. In 1930, the Indiana Bell Building was completely rotated 90 degrees in just 1 month. The 22 million pound structure was moved 15 inches per hour while 600 employees still worked there. There was no interruption to gas, water, electricity, or telephone service, and no one inside felt the building move. Coconut crabs have a great sense of smell and will travel in packs to find food. They'll eat virtually anything and are basically the raccoons of the Indo-Pacific Islands. A Kansas homeowner turned on his sprinklers before leaving to escape a wildfire. He returned to find his home completely intact while everything around it had burnt to the ground. In the 1950s, a family from Texas had a pet lion named Blondie. They never had a single incident with her, and she died of old age as a beloved member of the family. A Colombian woman was raised by monkeys after being kidnapped and abandoned in the jungle as a child. She spent 5 years living with a colony of capuchin monkeys before being rescued by hunters. When she was found, she didn't know how to cooperate with other humans. In 1965, a Ukrainian farmer dug up the lower jawbone of a mammoth. Further excavations revealed 4 huts that were made completely out of mammoth bones. These 15,000-year-old dwellings are now recognized as some of the oldest surviving shelters constructed by prehistoric man. The oldest known deck of 52 playing cards is from the Netherlands circa 1475. They're currently housed at the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York City. This 900-year-old Indian sculpture of an elephant and a bull sharing the same head is said to be the oldest optical illusion ever found. The world's oldest cosmetic face cream was found inside of an ancient Roman temple complex dedicated to Mars. It's so incredibly well preserved that it still has finger marks inside of the lid. Lieutenant Colonel A.J. Drexel Biddle was a master in hand-to-hand combat. He used to order his troops to surround him with bayonets before single-handedly disarming each of them. This photo of one such demonstration was taken in 1943. In the Titanic movie, crew member William Murdoch was portrayed shooting a passenger before killing himself. But in real life, Murdoch was last seen trying to fill as many lifeboats as possible before heroically going down with the ship. In Iraq 2009, Sergeant Dakota Meyer disobeyed a direct order to pull back from his position. Instead, he entered an area that was under fire so that he could rescue 4 wounded soldiers. He ended up going back 5 times and saved the lives of 36 men, saying, "That's what you do for a brother." The oldest known piece of chewing gum was discovered in southern Denmark in 2019. Scientists were able to map out the entire genome of the girl who chewed it around 5,700 years ago. And above is an artist's reconstruction of what she might have looked like. Tucked away in Westminster Abbey, this is the oldest door in all of Great Britain. Made out of a single oak tree, the door has remained standing for just under 1,000 years. The oldest prosthetic eye in the world was discovered in 2006 Iran. It was worn 4,800 years ago by an ancient Persian priestess who stood at 6 feet tall. It's believed to be made out of natural tar and animal fat, and was originally painted gold to make the woman appear to have supernatural powers. This amazing photograph captured the moment a wild orangutan reached out to help a conservationist who was stuck in a river. It was taken in Malaysia, where the man was searching for dangerous snakes in the area to protect the local apes. Archerfish have been known to prey on land-based insects and small animals by shooting them with a jet of water. Here's some incredibly disturbing footage of a raven speaking human.
Come on. Come on. Come on. Good boy.
I hate it. Domestic dogs are one of the only species of animal that can understand the human gesture of pointing. Other animals such as wolves and primates don't realize that pointing means to look in that direction and will only be interested in your outstretched finger. Nicknamed the Merchant of Death, Russian arms dealer Victor Bout rose to power after the fall of the Soviet Union in the early 1990s. Using his fleet of 60 cargo planes, the arms he's brokered have helped fuel conflicts in countries including Afghanistan, Angola, the Democratic Republic of Congo, Somalia, Rwanda, Liberia, Sudan, and Sierra Leone. Willing to sell weapons to anyone who wanted them, Bout has supplied both sides of multiple civil wars and is said to be responsible for the deaths of tens of millions of people. He was arrested during a sting operation in 2008 where he was caught selling surface-to-air missiles that would have been used to kill American troops. But Victor Bout is now free thanks to a prisoner swap for WNBA player Brittany Griner, who was arrested 6 months ago after trying to bring a THC cartridge on a Russian airplane. In 1976, 7 armed men broke into Bob Marley's home and attempted to assassinate him. Bob was shot in the chest and the arm but survived. His wife Rita was shot in the head but also survived thanks to her thick dreadlocks slowing down the bullet. In their earlier years, Bob Marley and the Wailers would often rehearse late at night in the local cemetery. This was because their manager convinced them that if they could conquer their fear of spirits, they could conquer their stage fright in front of crowds. In 1977, Marley was diagnosed with skin cancer under his toenail that had a 90% survival rate. He was told that amputating his toe would stop the spread, but he refused since his Rastafarian religion saw surgery as a sin. After 4 years of no treatment, the cancer had spread to his brain and lungs. His last words to his son Ziggy were, "Money can't buy life." In 2005, a wild gorilla in the remote Congolese forest was seen using a stick to test the water depth of a swamp. She was then observed using it as a walking stick to help her cross the body of water, making her the first documented case of a wild gorilla seen using tools. This absolute gentleman of a grizzly bear was videotaped fixing a traffic cone before continuing on his way. What a good guy. In the early 2000s, a man who suffered multiple strokes tried to teach his cat how to dial 911. Unsure if the training stuck, one day the man fell from his wheelchair during a seizure. Police received a silent call from the house and arrived to find the man incapacitated with no one around except his cat. This Norwegian building that looks like it has legs was used in the 18th century to store grains. It was propped up with wooden platforms to protect the grain from water damage and pests. Uncombable hair syndrome is an extremely rare condition that literally makes the hair impossible to comb. It currently affects less than 100 people across the globe. In 1960, David Latimer planted a garden inside of a giant glass bottle and opened it just once to water it in 1972. Amazingly, this self-contained ecosystem continues to flourish more than 50 years later. This rare Australian Wagyu tomahawk is making my tummy growl as we speak. In 1986, Romanian sewer workers accidentally stumbled upon a cave that had been sealed off for over 5 million years. The alien-like ecosystem is based completely on chemosynthesis and is home to more than 30 species that can't be found anywhere else on Earth. 1969, an astrologer warned John Lennon that he would be shot on an island. John was so disturbed by this that it caused him to cancel an upcoming yacht trip around the Greek islands. 11 years later, John Lennon was shot and killed on the island of Manhattan. These natural ice formations in Antarctica look like structures built by the ancient Romans. This 3,000-year-old clay pig was found 2 years ago at the Lian ruins of China. Internet users immediately pointed out that it looked oddly similar to the pigs from Angry Birds. An LA couple was ecstatic to see the first ultrasound of their baby until they realized that he looked exactly like Donald Trump. The shadow of this sign in Devon, England closely resembles a person being hanged. Coincidentally, it's located near a spot called Dead Man's Cross, where criminals were hanged from a gallows in the 13th century. 17. If you were dying from the plague during the 16th century, this is what the doctor who treated you would have worn. During this time period, it was believed that smelling odors such as rotting corpses was what made people sick. So the beak was filled with a mixture of herbs meant to purify the air the doctor was breathing. This breathtaking staircase at the Chambord Castle in France was designed by Leonardo DiCaprio in the year 1516. This massive two-handed sword was created for Prince Elector Maximilian II in 1689. The blade of this incredible weapon was made completely out of the snout of a sawfish. Contractors in Marino, Italy were excavating for a new McDonald's when they came across a 2,000-year-old road from ancient Rome. Once excavations were complete, they built a glass floor in the restaurant to showcase the amazing discovery. Prior to filming The Dark Knight, Heath Ledger locked himself in a hotel room and talked to only himself for 6 straight weeks. He said this helped him land more in the realm of a psychopath to prepare for his iconic role of the Joker. Many believe this extreme dedication was partially responsible for his accidental overdose on sleeping pills the next year. A horrific bungee cord injury caused this man's iris to completely collapse. Black Wall Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma used to be the wealthiest black community in all of America. That was until 1921 when a mob of white supremacists attacked the community with the help of the National Guard. Using guns, explosives, and even airplanes, they decimated 35 square blocks of the neighborhood and murdered hundreds of African Americans. It's known today as the Black Wall Street Massacre. The shaman of Bad Dürrenberg was a middle-aged woman who was buried around 9,000 years ago in what is now central Germany. Believed to have been a person of great prestige, she was buried with an extraordinary headdress that was made from the bones and teeth of various animals such as deer, cranes, turtles, and wild boar. This incredible video shows archaeologists opening an ancient Egyptian sarcophagus in front of a crowd of people. The coffin contained the body of an ancient priest and had been sealed for over 2,500 years up until this point. In 2020, a massive canvas filled with thousands of Ice Age drawings was found in the middle of the Amazon rainforest. The incredible artwork includes handprints, geometric designs, and a wide array of extinct animals. It spans for nearly 8 miles, and some of the drawings are estimated to be up to 12,600 years old. According to his former doctor, Michael Jackson's father had him chemically castrated as a young boy. He reportedly did this so that Michael would maintain his high-pitched singing voice into adulthood. The skin of certain fish species can be grafted onto severe burns and diabetic wounds. The material recruits the body's own cells and is eventually converted into living tissue. Located in Paris, this is the tomb of legendary scientist Marie Curie. It's lined with an inch thick of lead since her remains are still radioactive to this day. A Nile crocodile named Gustave has killed as many as 300 people in Burundi over the last 50 years. He's evaded dozens of capture and murder attempts as he can be identified by the 3 bullet scars on his body. The 2,000-pound monster croc is already nearly 20 feet long and is said to be still growing to this day. This video from an Ontario aquarium shows the amazing intelligence of an orca whale. He spits out some fish that he was given for food and sinks down into the water in front of a flock of birds. When one of the seagulls eventually takes the bait, the orca immediately grabs it, earning himself a much bigger meal. Here's a video of a lowland gorilla from the Miami Zoo telling visitors in sign language that they're not allowed to feed him. African archaeologists have discovered dwarf crocodiles living in remote caves in Gabon. After living in complete darkness for a few generations, their skin has turned orange and they are almost completely blind. These weird cave crocodiles may be in the process of evolving into an entirely new species. Octomom Nadia Sulman became notorious in 2009 when she had 8 babies as a result of in vitro fertilization. However, Nadia claimed that while she was heavily sedated, it was her fertility specialist that convinced her to have 12 embryos implanted in her at once. All of the babies miraculously survived, but the doctor had his license revoked for extreme malpractice. This violin was used by the lead member of the band that played on the Titanic. Just like in the movie, they continued playing as the ship went down. In 1967, line worker Randall Champion accidentally grabbed a high-voltage line, instantly electrocuting himself and stopping his heart. That's when fellow lineman J.D. Thompson immediately rushed over and performed CPR until paramedics arrived. Champion ended up surviving, and this famous photo became known as the Kiss of Life. This beach in Turkey is one of the only beaches in the world that's accessible to handicapped people. When she was 7 years old, Christina Santhouse was diagnosed with a life-threatening condition that forced doctors to remove half of her brain. But she miraculously grew up to earn a master's degree and now works as a professional speech pathologist. While filming the final scene of the movie Kingpin, where Bill Murray's character bowls 3 strikes in a row, Bill Murray actually did bowl 3 strikes in a row. His celebration along with the crowd's roaring applause were both genuine reactions. An adopted man from Michigan had been searching for his birth mother for 4 years before finding out she'd been working at the same Lowe's as him the entire time. Founder of the Ferrari company, Enzo Ferrari, died on August 14, 1988. Just 1 month later, on October 15th, Arsenal football player Mesut Ozil was born. Someone took this pic of an albino peacock at the exact time that it flew over a regular one, making it look like its spirit was exiting its body. Famous Austrian composer Arnold Schoenberg had extreme triskaidekaphobia, the fear of the number 13. He ended up dying on Friday the 13th at the age of 76. Queen Elizabeth had 2 first cousins named Nerissa and Catherine who were severely disabled. Nerissa was publicly pronounced dead in 1940, while her sister Catherine was said to have died in 1961. But it was later revealed that they were both tucked away in a mental asylum until their actual deaths in 1986 and 2014. These were just some of the many wedding rings that were taken from Holocaust victims at Buchenwald concentration camp. Paul McCartney decided not to tell his wife Linda that her cancer progressed and had become terminal. He didn't think it would do her any good if she knew, so she continued riding her horse until the day before she died. In August of 2001, actor James Woods reported 4 suspicious men on his flight, but authorities didn't take his claims seriously. Turns out they were 4 of the hijackers who ended up crashing into the Twin Towers on 9/11. Last year, archaeologists in Lima, Peru came across a mummy that was bound in ropes in an underground tomb. It's estimated to be up to 1,200 years old, as rope binding was a typical part of the local funeral process around that time. This is one of the 3 ancient Roman pools of Gafsa located in Tunisia, 2 of which are open to the public. Built in the 2nd century BC, the pool is about 15 feet deep and is naturally heated by hot water springs. When you put together the buttons of a World War II Royal Air Force uniform, they turn into a mini compass. The amazing feature was made to be used by troops that were shot down behind enemy lines. During an excavation project at Stirling Castle in Scotland, a grey leather ball was found behind some paneling in a bedroom that belonged to Queen Mary Stuart. Estimated to be over 450 years old, it's said to be the oldest soccer ball in the world. A restaurant in Bangkok has been continuously cooking and serving from the same soup for over 45 years. Known as perpetual stew, new ingredients are added every day to continuously evolve the flavor over time. As a result of its burning sulfur, the Indonesian volcano of Kawah Ijen is the only volcano in the world with blue lava. Sunken World War II ships at the bottom of the ocean are actually extremely valuable. They're one of the only sources of steel in the world that remains uncontaminated by nuclear radiation. Here's an amazing photo of a diver at Silfra Fissure in Iceland touching North America and Europe at the same time. Filet mignon, hoo hoo. The Atacama Desert in northern Chile is said to be the oldest and driest desert in the world, but every 5 years or so, the arid landscape explodes with plant life during a rare phenomenon known as desert bloom. During a Bronx apartment fire in 2010, 18-year-old Vanessa Scott realized that her baby cousin started choking on smoke. That's when she managed to slide the girl through the 5th-story window and held onto her tightly so that she wouldn't suffocate. Both the woman and her cousin ended up surviving. Just days after 95-year-old Jimmy Carter received 15 stitches from falling, the former president traveled to Nashville to help build porches for Habitat for Humanity. For years, Texas father Gordon Hartman struggled to find an amusement park that would accommodate his daughter Morgan's special needs. So in 2005, he decided to sell his successful home building company and built an entire theme park fully accessible to people with special needs. The $50 million park features dozens of attractions, and admissions for people with disabilities are completely free. In 2004, a Georgia man was found naked and beaten unconscious next to a dumpster behind a Burger King. He didn't have any possessions or ID on him and couldn't even remember his own name. When he looked at himself in the mirror, he recognized himself but realized he was about 20 years older than he thought. For the next decade, authorities struggled to identify the man despite TV coverage and a nationwide effort. Given the alias Benjamin Kyle, the man was unable to obtain employment without his social security number and therefore became homeless for several years. It wasn't until 2015 when he was finally identified through DNA testing as William Burgess Powell, born in 1948. But despite this discovery, there's still a 20-year gap in his life history with no documented records or anything he can remember. Princess Diana didn't die immediately at the scene of her car accident, but instead died 5 hours later due to a tear in the pulmonary vein of her heart. She would have had an 80% chance of surviving the crash if she had just been wearing her seatbelt.
Male genital transplant surgeons typically exclude the testicles when performing a transplant. This is because the deceased donor would become the biological father of any future babies produced by that nutsack.
In 2018, American missionary John Allen Chow illegally traveled to North Sentinel Island so that he could preach Christianity to an uncontacted tribe. He was well aware that the Sentinelese people were extremely violent towards outsiders, but he believed that God would protect him. Before he even stepped foot on land, he was greeted with an arrow through the heart. When Sharon Osbourne was sick in bed with cancer and giving up, Ozzy asked Robin Williams to come visit her. Robin randomly hopped in her sick bed, and her family instantly went from crying to laughing hysterically. Robin cheered her up so much that she went back to chemo the very next day. When Superman actor Christopher Reeve was left paralyzed after a horse riding accident, Robin Williams was one of the first people to visit him in the hospital. He came in dressed as a doctor and told Reeve he was there to give him a rectal exam, causing him to laugh for the first time in weeks. When Robin Williams first met Coco the gorilla in 2001, he made her smile for the first time in 6 months. When Robin died in 2014, Coco overheard the news and said the word cry in sign language.